So I saw this the other day on the Jeremy Vine show. It's a debate between Christian Calgi, who you can see is the senior political correspondent at the Daily Express, and a Yimby sometimes, and Nelufar Hedayat, who is Afghan British. So she's an Afghan immigrant to Britain. And I found this little debate very interesting because there's a certain kind of, I guess what you call the sort of the ethnic left, where these people have a deep commitment to their own home culture in a way that would be considered far right if any English person were to do it. But because they're doing it over here and not in their own country, they aren't right wing, they aren't far right, they are instead inveterate leftists. And they have to commit to leftist propositions such as everyone everywhere is all the same and every culture is basically just a mimicry of each other culture. And so every culture is completely 100% compatible because this is a way in to the existing culture. If the existing culture recognizes your culture or her culture as being something different, foreign, and substantively different, qualitatively different to our own, then we might discriminate against it. In fact, it may be that we have to discriminate against it. And Nelufar here views this as a kind of personal attack because she's like, well, that's me. It's like, yeah, because you are still committed to Afghan as an ethnic identity instead of the kind of integrationist model of marrying into British society and becoming British, letting go of the old ways. And so the question is, well, why are you here? If you're not here to let go of your old ways, why aren't you in Afghanistan? But anyway, let's watch.
We know that statistics show that people from certain cultures and certain backgrounds
absolutely
are far more
likely
to
hang on,
commit crimes like
you can't say no until
assault
he's finished the sentence.
And sexual harassment. We know that. And if you care about women's safety, yes, of course, I'm as much of a feminist as anyone else, and I think domestic British men, but they don't go out and rape women 10 minutes after arriving in the country.
Right, immediately.
They come from backwards cultures. They have no right to be here. They should be deported as a bare minimum. And I think these people are absolutely right to be protesting. I'd be sick to death of it too.
So look at her face, right? Look at everything about that response. No, I refuse to believe there is any difference between British men and Afghan men. The problem that they have is that the numbers are in. Like, the numbers are just in, we know. So, sex offences in London by nationality per 10,000 people. British people, 6.5. French, 6.63. Angola, 6.67. Sierra Leone, 6.92. Somalia, 54.82. Algeria, 56.36. Eritrea, 65.71, but top of the leaderboard, Afghanistan, 74.17. So when she says he's lying, when she says there's no difference between different nationalities of people in the way that they behave, particularly in this case, the way that they treat women, that's not true. That's just not true. That's a lie. That's fake. So when she's accusing him of lying, she is standing on a bed of nonsense. She's got nothing. She just has no foundations to what she's saying. Like I said, the numbers are in. This isn't like speculative. We know precisely how many per 10,000 that have been charged for crimes. So this isn't like a survey. We know what the numbers are. And so where can she go from here? Remember her prior commitments of being an ethno-leftist, where she's like, well, I've got to look out for my people in this foreign land, and left-wing politics is how I do it. I have to assert that everyone's the same. And if someone just says, you know, I don't think that's the case, and they should be deported at bare minimum, and I love the at bare minimum part, because to be honest with you, I mean, a sensible country, if some foreign guy raped an English woman or a Welsh woman or a Scottish woman, I mean, he should get worse than just being deported, right? He should feel like he has violated a sacred covenant between the guest and the host, because he has, and we should flog him at the very minimum, in my opinion. But anyway, at the very least, he should be kicked out of the country. And so she's now got to understand, oh well, I'm in a difficult position. Where do you think she's going to go from here?
They're in every community up and down this country. We didn't want them here in the first place. And not only is it bad enough that we're funding these people to live in hotels, but they're also going out onto the streets and attacking innocent people.
All right, OK.
I just want to say, Chris here has done a superb job. It is Chris, yeah, it's Christian. He's done a superb job of just laying out the case here. He's correct on every point. On every single point. We didn't want them here. We didn't ask them to be here. Nobody even wanted the legislation that has allowed them to take advantage of the system. And so we are just being taken for mugs. And everyone knows it. And so, like I said, where's she going to go from here?
But you're doing that thing of starting with migrants and then moving across to as if all of them are sexual aggressors, which they're not.
No.
Okay, but what percentage of the migrants have to have raped someone before we're like, right, okay, I think it's them as a group. Like the illegal immigrants who've broken into our country or been smuggled in by the government, and they have a shockingly high rate by which they sexually assault people. Like at some point, we've got to be like, look, it's just a feature of the differences between their culture and ours that makes them think that this is actually not a problem. Whereas compared to us right at the bottom here, we that's because our culture considers this a real problem. Their culture, not so much, right? I mean, no one was like, oh yeah, Afghan culture, really respectful of women. Definitely doesn't have a problem with bakabazi. Really something that, you know, the average Afghan man is very stoic and self-controlled when it comes to his urges, right? No, that's not what we think, because that's not what they display. And so, again, where's she going from here?
Right.
Okay,
right.
All of
so
them
just
are,
want to
but
make sure.
they're
Okay, Nilofer,
likely to be.
Answer him.
I don't really need to say anything. I mean, that was just dangerous.
Dangerous? Dangerous? I think there are other dangers. I mean, maybe she's thinking from a perspective of, I'm not going to be the victim of this, but someone's going to be the victim of this. And I think this is way more dangerous. And like Jeremy's right, it's not every single one, but nobody said it was every single one. In fact, Chris made a point of saying, well, look, they're just far more likely, by orders of magnitude more likely. This is an unacceptable risk. This group of people just have different ethics when it comes to these sorts of subjects. And I don't think this is compatible with the way we do things here, which is probably why Afghan women are forced to dress so conservatively. British women aren't, so why are we just acting as if this is all normal? And her only response is to say, this is dangerous. Well, maybe dangerous to a bunch of freeloading grifters who have broken into the country and been smuggled in by a government, because they might just get deported back to where they came from, right? That seems to be the danger that she's referencing, because in every other way, I mean, I just think it's dangerous to let them continue roaming around unchecked on our dime, as it were. I just don't see why we would do this.
Frankly,
speaking the truth is not dangerous. Covering up the truth
Christian, let her respond.
Well, speaking the truth can be dangerous if your narrative is predicated on lies. If the justification for these people being in this country is predicated on untruths, then speaking the truth is very dangerous to that state of affairs. But the people on the side of truth, goodness, justice, beauty, all those decent things, we want to be dangerous to the lies. We want to be dangerous to the narrative of lies. If they don't see us as dangerous to their narrative, then we're not doing our jobs.
What you're saying is dangerous. You are conflating things. You are landing a narrative that you know is going to get people riled up.
See, now this is the thing. It's the narrative control. She just said it. Narrative control. What she's worried about is that people will say, you know what? I'm not sure why we're importing so many foreign rapists, paying for the privilege, and then just letting them to roam around in our own communities and with our money to be a risk to our children. I'm not sure why we're doing that. And she's like, yeah, well, if you get people riled up about this, as in, if you tell them the truth, they will be riled up, which is literally all her argument boils down to, then these Afghan men might get deported. And she is an ethno-leftist. She is an Afghan. She doesn't want these men deported for some reason.
You have made these big, bold claims that you have no right making because they're not connected.
He has every right to make them. Even if they were lies, he still has a right to tell a lie, and we have a duty to call that out. But in this case, he's telling the truth. So he has absolutely every right, as an Englishman, to make these claims, because not only are they true, but that was traditionally, historically, what our liberty was all about.
Connected once and for all. And a very, very important point. If you care so much about my safety as a British woman, why don't you go protest the fact that the number of people who are accused and sent to jail of rape in this country is at 2%? Why don't you come with me at the next rally?
Is anything he's...
Okay, so, I mean, don't get me wrong. I agree that that is a problem. It probably is that a lot of rapists are being let off. But remember that this isn't an evenly balanced scale. I don't know how to put it, but like, they may be being let off for reasons of political correctness, rather than not being jailed, rather than being jailed for reasons of political correctness, or for justice. It's not as simple as that. But again, notice how she's gone from, oh, I'm going to defend the Afghan cause, to I, as a British woman. It's like, well, I mean, not that many British women are actually in favour of cramming the country with people who are the highest rate in the country of sexual offences, right? Not many people are actually in favour of that, but she, for some reason, is. And then claims that she's worried about her personal safety. It's like, I can't help but feel there's a bit of duplicity going on here. I don't really think you're being honest with your motives.
He said, just be clear.
Yes, of course it is.
What did he say that was wrong? Just
nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He said absolutely nothing wrong. However, what he said is devastating to the left-wing case. Absolutely devastating. It destroys every single thing that her entire worldview and mission is predicated on. And remember, her mission is accrue resources for her people, for her tribe, accrue rights, resources, and well-being. That's the plan from her point of view. And she's going to use leftism to do it. This is what the overarching theme and goal of ethno-leftism is. And Chris is like, I'm actually against injustice, which is something entirely different and often alien to the cultures that we're coming from. So the interesting thing about these cultures, they're at the top of here, is that they're what we could call clannish. Right? They're very clannish. So the morality of the people is very tied up in the personal relationships that each person has with the other members of their clan. So that's families, extended family, and then other clans with whom there is a historic relation, whether it's via intermarriage or oaths or things like that. The morality is contained in these relationships, and it ties these things together. So if you're not tied to the clans and the network of clans that are interlaced together, well, then you don't really exist as a moral person, as a moral agent, as a moral entity. You're actually not really given that much consideration. And so you get this. Chris comes from Britain, where you can see we have the abstract concept of the rule of law. So no matter what clan you come from, the law applies to all equally and is more important than your personal relationships. So if I found one of my cousins or my brother or sister or whatever doing something terrible, the fact that they're doing something terrible is more important than my blood relation to them. And I have therefore an obligation to report that person to the police. So the law itself, the overarching moral order of the country, is protected, rather than, as in the case of the Afghans and the Eritreans and the Algerians and whoever else, rather than the integrity of the loyalty and honor of the clans is protected. These are two very different ways of looking at the world, and this is what I think we're seeing on display here.
Just because you haven't gone to that,
Sure. I think one of the main things he's saying that are wrong is that there are some cultures, by which he means non-white, who are disproportionately represented. When we know that 36% of this country's population is white British male, and they are overrepresented in sexual violence and rape cases.
The thing is, I don't think they are overrepresented. In London, in particular, they're 6.5 per 10,000 people charged for sexual offences. So, I mean, if anything, they're probably underrepresented, and there's no reason to think it. So I think she's telling a lie. She presents no source for this stat. She says, it is known Khaleesi, and I'm sorry, I just don't think that's correct. In fact, it seems that these groups are different in the way that they approach sexual morality, and I think Rupert Lowe is actually going to be getting more granular detail on this as well, for national statistics. So watch this space.
So we know statistically that white men are overrepresented in those groups.
I don't know.
That's not true. That's just not true. No one thinks that either. No one thinks it's the straight white Englishman wandering around who is the main threat to women, because it's just not borne out in anything that we see.
Where is your outrage?
I don't know that. Okay.
But firstly, I mean, you've just said yourself, there is a massive problem in this country with rape convictions of a whole. So I'm afraid we can't just take the conviction rate, because a lot of people are not reporting these incidents. They're not reporting being sexually harassed. You know, the amount of young men loitering around city centres, wolf whistling, harassing women, they're not, a lot of them aren't British. Why are they here in the first place? Are they not contributing anything? And what...
No, the sigh. She's got nothing she can say to that, because that's true. I mean, what do you think the rate of sexual assault reporting is internally to some of these cultures? Because Baroness Wolsey did a report back in 2013 saying, well, look, the grooming gang thing is bad, but it's happening to us too. And it's like, well, you know, I'm not going to point fingers or anything, but I get the feeling that a lot of things are being underreported.
Once again, we hear this argument that you can't speak the truth
women
because
say,
if people hear the truth, they get angry.
Women
They have a right to be angry.
Women say time and again, the people that abuse us are predominantly men. Why are you attacking them for being migrants and not for them being rapists?
Because...
Well, there's something to do with the Venn diagram here, actually. Obviously, they're men, but that's not really very specific, and all men are not the same, actually. Many men are against this sort of thing, and many men don't seem to care about this sort of thing. And actually, we could prevent many of the assaults if we just simply didn't allow many of these people to be here. They just have a different morality to us, and we don't have to accept them. And it's not saying just, oh, it's men. Well, that's so non-specific, so vague, as to not really be of any help when it comes to actually making sure the streets are safe. We can't just ban men from the streets, I'm afraid.
We can stamp out a large proportion of sexual harassment.
It is, though. It is. Like, I saw someone on Twitter the other day arguing, well, 36% of sexual assaults are done by immigrants. And that means that 2/3 are not done by immigrants. It's like, Jesus Christ. You know, the country is only about 15% immigrant. Like, that's a real problem, isn't it? Like, don't you, like, these are such abominable figures that the left doesn't even think about it. They're like, yeah, but per capita, what's that?
Minority.
Well, there's an enormous per capita issue here, which we're not...
We just roll into the per capita problem, and she's just sat there seething.
Addressing, and we can we can commensurately decrease the number of assaults and harassment in this country by properly vetting who's coming here and not taking in people from objectively backgrounds.
Let's pause.
Everyone
let's
in
pause.
this debate.
But we don't need to include everyone. First things first, we can't deport the British men, right? Now, I mean, I would love to deport British rapists, but we can't do that. So all we can do is lock them up, punish them as the law demands and requires. Fine, but we can do something about the rest of them. There's no reason that foreigners who are in this country and have committed a crime should be here at all. And if one particular group has a remarkably high rate of committing crimes, then actually it's just prudent not to have this group in the country. If for some reason they have an ethical problem or an ethical disagreement with our culture that we don't want to tolerate, there's no particular reason we have to tolerate it, actually, because they actually don't have any right to be here, because they are foreign nationals. They have a right to their own country, and we have a right to ours.